Xi Jinping pledges $50 billion to Africa. Qiantang River sweeps tourists away, casualties unknown. Samsung plans 30% layoff in China's sales department. Indonesia to deport former Filipino-Chinese mayor. Shandong grid workers dismissed after Fujian pay suspension. Xinhu Group's 4.68 billion yuan employee trust collapses. On September 5th, during the opening ceremony of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, in Beijing, Xi Jinping promised to give Africa 360 billion yuan, about $50.7 billion over the next 3 years. He also said that the relationship between China and Africa is currently in its best historical period. Additionally, Xi Jinping mentioned China is actively participating in and implementing the G20 debt relief initiative, having announced a suspension of debt repayment for 77 developing countries. On April 3, 2023, a user with the online name Big Cannon published an article on Pingtong. The user made 2 surprising discoveries. First, over the past 10 years, China's foreign aid has far exceeded that of the United States, making China a superpower in foreign aid. Second, in the past 4 years, most of China's aid has gone not to Africa, but to Russia, with Russia receiving 6 times the aid given to Africa. According to data from Huanqiu, over the past 4 years, China has given away 6 trillion yuan in foreign aid. If this money were distributed evenly among the 3,000 listed companies in China, each company would receive 2 billion yuan. If the funds were lent to domestic small and micro enterprises, it could completely resolve the financing difficulties of all 10 million such businesses, with each receiving an average of 600,000 yuan. If the money were used for rural development, it could immediately help 100 million farmers achieve a moderately prosperous life, with each household receiving 60,000 yuan. If it were distributed evenly to each Chinese citizen, each person would get over 4,000 yuan, or $564. According to the CCP mouthpiece, Global Times, over the past 4 years, China has provided $400 billion in aid to Russia, 65 billion to Venezuela, 50 billion to Indonesia, 10 billion to Brazil, 12 billion to Ecuador, 60 billion to Africa, and 55 billion to Middle Eastern countries. 3 years after the pandemic, China's economy has sharply declined, with even economically developed areas like Guangdong and Shenzhen experiencing widespread store closures and mass unemployment. Many workers unable to find jobs are left homeless, sleeping on the streets. In remote rural areas, elderly people and children struggle with extreme poverty, lacking basic necessities and food. Life has become very difficult. Moreover, many middle-class families are crushed under the weight of mortgage and car loan payments. Life has become so hard for some that it feels almost impossible to continue. Despite these circumstances, Xi Jinping still has Africa in mind, announcing another $50 billion in aid. Big Cannon commented, in recent years, the CCP has faced the pandemic, external sanctions from the US, a decline in land-based finances, a population crisis, shrinking consumption, and a collapse in employment. People inside China feel that every year gets worse. Many are struggling to survive, yet the government is still so enthusiastic about handing out money abroad. Another netizen angrily criticized, China is facing unemployment and human trafficking, but Xi Jinping turns a blind eye to it, while he continues to give away money to Africa every year. On July 4, 2024, another user posted on the popular Chinese news platform Toutiao, claiming that giving away such large sums of money is illegal and constitutes treason. In the post, they wrote, taking the people's money and giving it to foreigners without legal approval is a crime, an act of treason. This is an extremely serious action that seriously violates the interests of the nation and its people. Such behavior indeed crosses the legal red line and constitutes a betrayal of the national and public interests. Giving away the hard-earned money of the people without legal approval, simply gifting it to foreigners, is not only a gross irresponsibility towards the nation's finances, but also a tremendous disrespect for the hard work of the people. This behavior severely damages the country's economic security and political stability, and it greatly diminishes the public's patriotism and sense of national pride. It is one of the most serious crimes against national interests. On September 4th, many tourists gathered along the Qiantang River to watch and take photos of the large tidal waves up close. Unexpectedly, the powerful tide surged directly into the crowd, knocking down and sweeping away many people. The extent of casualties is currently unknown. The Qiantang River tide is a unique natural phenomenon along the lower reaches of the river. When the tide comes, the waves roar and surge dramatically, earning it the title of the world's largest tidal bore. The tide peaks twice a day, roughly 12 hours apart, with the highest tide reaching up to 3.5 meters and a tidal range of 8 to 9 meters. Each year, the 18th day of the 8th month of the lunar calendar marks the traditional tide-watching festival, which has been celebrated for over 1,000 years. During this period, the tides of the Qiantang River are especially spectacular, with waves crashing and roaring. Northern Song Dynasty poet Su Dongpo famously wrote, "The tides of the 18th of August, unmatched in grandeur." Tourists from all over flock to witness this awe-inspiring natural event alongside hundreds of thousands of local residents along the riverbank. However, the tidal waves of the Qiantang River are extremely powerful and destructive, and they are considered divine by ancient people. The waves can travel at speeds of up to 11 meters per second, with a maximum impact force of 7 to 8 tons, enough to overturn cars. As a result, accidents and fatalities frequently occur. According to incomplete statistics, in the past 30 years, hundreds of incidents where people were swept away by the tide have occurred along the Hangzhou section of the Qiantang River, with nearly 100 deaths, mostly among tourists from outside the area. During the tide-watching festival, 86 people were swept into the river by the sudden surge, resulting in 19 deaths, 27 injuries, and 40 missing. On September 8, 2002, Typhoon Sinlaku caused storm tides to combine with the astronomical high tides, destroying the piers and the temporary bridges of the Fujian Bridge, which was under construction at the time. At Jiuqi Coral Sands, the waves surged onto a T-shaped embankment, sweeping away spectators. Over 20 cars and motorcycles were also damaged. On August 2, 2007, at around 4:30 p.m., while about 4 people were playing along the riverbank at the T-shaped embankment, they were swept away by the tide. 8 people lost their lives. On September 21, 2020, a tide surged over the T-shaped embankment and onto Zhejiang Road, damaging several vehicles. Fortunately, there were no casualties. On October 1, 2023, at a scenic area in Zhejiang, the tidal waves from the Qiantang River were so strong that they broke a 25-meter-long barrier, injuring several tourists who were knocked down by the waves. Due to the economic downturn in China and weak domestic demand, South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics plans to cut 30% of its sales staff in China by 2025. The first wave of layoffs is expected to affect 8% of its 1,600 sales employees in China, which amounts to around 130 people. According to Seoul Economic Daily, increasing competition in the Chinese market and the country's economic slump have made the future operations of Samsung's China branch uncertain. In response, Samsung is taking extreme restructuring measures. Samsung executives stated that due to poor sales of products like Samsung smart TVs and smartphones in China, the company plans to reduce both Chinese sales staff and indirect support personnel from its production departments by next year. The layoff process has already begun, with the restructuring being described as just the beginning, not the end, and the total reduction is expected to reach 30% by next year. Industry insiders revealed that Samsung Electronics has recently issued restructuring notices to its Chinese sales employees, inviting them to apply for voluntary resignations. The layoffs mainly affect Chinese nationals hired locally, and the news has left many of these employees in shock. Since 2018, Samsung Electronics has been gradually shutting down several of its smartphone and computer factories in China, relocating production to countries like India and Vietnam. This shift has resulted in significant layoffs of Chinese workers, impacting the local economy. On September 4th, Indonesia's Minister of Justice announced that the country would deport Alice Guo, known in Chinese as Guo Huaping, a former Filipino-Chinese mayor accused of ties to a Chinese crime syndicate, and her accomplices are alleged to have laundered over 100 million pesos, approximately $1.8 million, through criminal activities. Alice Guo, formerly the mayor of Banban City in the Philippines, claims to be of mixed Chinese-Filipino descent and insists that the charges against her are malicious. Back in March, Philippine authorities raided a fraudulent offshore gambling operation in Banban City, mostly staffed by Chinese nationals. Nearly 700 forced laborers were rescued, and evidence of crimes such as fraud, human trafficking, and kidnapping was seized. Following this, the Philippine Senate launched an investigation in May. During the inquiry, senators questioned Guo's involvement in protecting criminal activities, which led to suspicions that she might be a Chinese spy. A subsequent investigation by the Philippine National Bureau of Investigation revealed that Alice Guo's fingerprints matched those of Guo Huaping, a Chinese national suspected of being a spy since 2006, with a passport listing her birthplace as Fujian, China. Although Alice Guo denied being Guo Huaping, she could not provide evidence of her identity. According to the documents she submitted, she only registered her birth at the age of 17, raising further doubts. Investigators also discovered that Guo Huaping owned nearly half of the land in the fraudulent gambling zone, and the fraud operations were located just behind her office, pointing to her involvement in illegal activities and the use of a false identity. After repeatedly failing to appear for Senate hearings, Guo was issued a warrant for her arrest in July and was removed from her position as mayor. However, by then, she had successfully left the country on July 18th, first traveling to Malaysia, then to Singapore on July 21st, and finally to Indonesia on August 18th. Guo's business partner, Li Wengxian, was arrested in late August, and she herself was captured by Indonesian authorities on September 3rd. Both now face multiple lawsuits related to money laundering. Guo's father, a Chinese national, is also suspected of espionage for the CCP, a claim that Alice Guo has denied. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. confirmed Guo's arrest in Indonesia and expressed his gratitude to the Indonesian government for their cooperation. This case comes amid growing suspicion in the Philippines regarding the activities of the Chinese Communist Party, with tensions between the two countries escalating over disputes in the busy waterways of the South China Sea. Authorities in the Yihenu district of Linyi, Shandong province, sent a notification that they had adjusted the roles of all district grid workers as of September 1st. It was stated that district-level reward funds for grid workers would be cut off as of August 31st, and they were required to return their mobile phones and other work-related items. One group member commented, "So they're basically saying we're fired, right?" On July 3rd, a post on China's Douyin platform revealed that the wages of Linyi grid workers had been suspended since last year. The post mentioned the last paycheck was at the end of last year, and in May they said we'd get 3 months' worth of wages, but we're still waiting. And salaries were only paid up to March 2023. This news sparked heated discussion online, with many netizens liking the posts and commenting, "It should have been disbanded long ago," and spending taxpayer money to support a bunch of troublemakers. Some were confused about the role of grid workers, asking, "What exactly do grid workers do?" One response compared them to the KGB, saying they're like mobile cameras that can go into toilets, and spies, informants, lackeys, and thugs, those are grid workers. Grid workers are the most basic level of the CCP's Stability Maintenance Force, with about 1 worker assigned for every 400 households. During the 3 years of pandemic control, grid workers helped the government implement precise control measures through inspections, information reporting, and monitoring, and their authority was expanded during that period. China's widespread economic deflation has caused businesses to cut salaries, lay off workers, or even go bankrupt. This has also impacted government tax revenues. Meanwhile, spending on external ventures, such as foreign aid and infiltration efforts, is increasing. As a result, the government has had to reduce its spending, even to the point where they can't pay the wages of their most critical stability maintenance forces, including grid workers. On August 22nd, online reports claimed that 800 grid workers in the Hanjiang district of Fujian province had not been paid for 6 months, and their social security payments had also been suspended. The local government admitted to the wage arrears, stating that they were working on resolving the issue. Over the past decade, Xinhu Group encouraged its employees to invest in customized trust products under the guise of employee benefits. Many employees, trusting Xinhu's chairman, Huang Wei, who was formerly Zhejiang's richest man, put their entire savings into these products. However, in June of this year, Xinhu Group employees discovered that the financial products they had bought had collapsed. Two trust products were involved, the Xinhu Group Single Fund Trust and the Xingyuan No. 5 Collective Trust Plan, both issued by Huaxin Trust, with a total amount of 4.6 billion yuan. Huang Wei, chairman of Xinhu Group, explained that the company's financial difficulties were due to a dispute involving Xinjiang Yihua Mining, which has led to cash flow problems. As of now, there is no solution to the overdue trust funds. Xinhu Group had early success in the real estate and capital markets, which made Huang Wei a fortune and earned him the title of Zhejiang's richest man. But with the current economic downturn, even Xinhu Group has not been spared. The two financial products promoted by Xinhu were mainly targeted at internal employees as a form of employee benefit. Despite the 1 million yuan investment threshold, employees eagerly participated. However, by 2022, it became increasingly difficult to cash out the trust products. As they were unable to get their money, employees began to protest at the company's headquarters, demanding that the group, its chairman, and related companies prioritize paying back employees by liquidating assets and investment income. They also called for state-owned enterprises like Chuzhou state-owned assets to take on a proportional responsibility for the payments, and that employee trust funds be treated with the same priority as salaries. By August, employees finally met with Huang Wei, who had no money to offer them. He pleaded, "Please bear with the company during this difficult time." Huang Wei, once the richest man in Wenzhou, initially built his fortune by selling glasses and trading stock subscription certificates. After profiting from speculative trading, he ventured into the real estate industry. With the rise of the Xinhu system, his financial empire expanded into real estate, finance, energy, and transportation. Xinhu Group eventually acquired companies like Shaoxing Baida and Haoke Science, building a diversified business empire centered around real estate. However, no business empire is immune to crisis. In recent years, with the decline in the real estate sector and other operational issues, Xinhu's empire has started to crumble. Now, the once wealthy Huang Wei faces a precarious financial situation. As for repaying the employees, his proposed solution is to protect the mine. According to him, only if we get the mine back will we be able to repay everyone. If we can't, I might go bankrupt. The mine in question is an open-pit coal mine located in Xinjiang's Shandong five-colored bay mining area, which Xinhu claims to have invested over 60 billion yuan in cash and 20 billion yuan in assets, but it was reportedly seized in June. This trust crisis, marketed as an employee benefit, has essentially cost Xinhu's employees dearly, leading to protests and claims for their money. Workers elsewhere should heed this cautionary tale to avoid losing their hard-earned salaries through similar schemes. Xinhu Group, or Zhejiang Xinhu Group Company Limited, was founded in 1994 and has a registered capital of 297.9 million yuan. It is a large corporate group with a modern business structure and has been rated as AAA for 10 consecutive years.